1,500 meters up, there is a village built inside the mouth of a volcano. Not beside it, not near it, inside it. Inside the crater of a mountain that is still alive. There is no power line running up here. No pipe carries water to these homes. The walls are stacked from black volcanic rock, and the floor of the whole valley is frozen lava, stretching out flat and dark in every direction. Around 1,000 people live here, in the one place on the island where the ground itself can kill them. You would look at this and call it a mistake, a village waiting for a disaster. And in a way, you would be right. The disaster has already come. It came in 2014, and it buried most of these houses under a slow river of molten rock, so they should have left. Any sane person would have left. And yet, within a year, families were climbing back up the mountain to rebuild, many of them against the direct orders of their own government. The question is why? Why would anyone choose to live on top of an active volcano with no electricity and no running water, waiting for the next eruption to come? The answer is not stubbornness. It is buried in the soil. And once you understand it, you will never look at dangerous ground the same way again. Think for a moment about where you live. The water that arrives the instant you turn a tap. The power that never really leaves. The quiet certainty that the ground under your house will still be there tomorrow. Now take all three away and add a volcano. That is the deal the people of this place accepted. And they did not just accept it. They chose it again after it took everything. This is Chã das Caldeiras, the plain of the calderas, on the island of Fogo in Cape Verde. Fogo means fire. The people who named it were not being poetic. The easy answer is that they are trapped, that these are poor people with nowhere else to go, clinging to a rock because they have no choice. And that answer is partly true. Cape Verde is a hard country. 10 small islands stranded in the Atlantic, hundreds of miles from Africa, with no rivers, almost no rain, and more of its people living abroad than at home. This is a nation that has spent its entire history learning to survive on very little. But being trapped does not explain what actually happens up in that crater, because the families who live there are not the poorest on the island. In a good year, they are among the richest. The most dangerous ground in all of Cape Verde is also the most valuable. And the reason is the very thing that keeps trying to destroy them. If you love stories about people who don't just survive the impossible but turn it to their advantage, this whole channel is built for you. Subscribe, and let's keep uncovering them together. Here is the first clue. When a volcano erupts, it destroys. Everyone sees that part. But when the lava cools and the ash settles, it leaves something behind that farmers spend their whole lives dreaming about. Think about what lava actually is. It is the inside of the planet, brought to the surface. Rock that was locked miles underground, full of the minerals that plants crave. When it cools and slowly breaks apart, it weathers into some of the most fertile soil on Earth. It is loose. It drains well. It holds the sun's heat through the cold nights. And it grows things that have no business growing on a desert island in the middle of the Atlantic. Up here at 1,700 meters, the air is cool, around 13 degrees, while the coast far below bakes in tropical heat. In that cool, mineral-rich ground, the people of Chã grow grapes. Real grapes on vines that grow low and tough against the wind. And from those grapes, they make wine. Let that land for a second. On an island most people picture as beaches and drought, there is a vineyard growing inside a volcano. The wine even has a name, Chã, or Vinho do Fogo, the wine of fire. In 2021, it earned a protected designation of origin, the same kind of legal recognition given to champagne, tying the taste to this exact soil and to nowhere else on Earth. Around 100 families pool their harvest into a single cooperative, pressing the grapes together the way their parents and grandparents did. And it is not only wine. The same black ground grows coffee, high and slow, the beans picked from trees scattered between the old lava flows. It grows figs, apples, pomegranates. Goats climb the slopes, and their milk becomes a sharp local cheese. The first vines were carried up here back in the 1800s, and they never left. So this is the bargain the mountain offers. It can bury you. But in return, it hands you the one patch of earth on the entire island where almost anything will grow. Take the volcano away, and Chã das Caldeiras is just barren rock. Because of the volcano, it is a garden, and that garden pays. The wine, the coffee, the fruit, the cheese all travel back down that single road, out across Cape Verde, and to the visitors who climb up looking for the peak. In a country where more than 9 out of every 10 mouthfuls of food arrive by ship from abroad, these families grow something almost no one else can. That is why the poorest-looking village on the island is quietly one of the wealthiest. The danger and the wealth pour out of the same mountain. But rich soil does not pour you a glass of water. And this is where daily life up here starts to sound almost impossible. There is no water system in the crater, no river, no reliable spring, no pipe running up from the coast. Water is precious across all of Cape Verde. The country has no permanent rivers at all, and barely a couple 100 millimeters of rain in a year. Up in the crater, every single liter has to be caught when it falls, carried by hand, or stored for later. Rain is collected the moment it comes. Tanks hold it through the long, dry months. Nothing is wasted, because up here waste is not bad manners. It is a threat to your life. There is no electricity grid either. What power exists comes from the sun, or from a generator, or from nothing at all. When the light goes at night, it truly goes, and the sky above the crater fills with more stars than most people on Earth will ever see, because there is no city for 100 kilometers to drown them out. The houses themselves are built from what the mountain provides. Walls of black volcanic stone, standing on ground that was once a river of fire. And there is one road, a single track that climbs the outer slope and drops down into the caldera. It is the only way in and the only way out. Everything that cannot be grown up there. Fuel, medicine, building materials, a doctor when someone falls sick, comes up that one road. The same road carries the hikers who come to climb the Black Peak and the wine that goes back down to be sold. Cut that road, and the crater becomes an island inside an island. Think about what that actually means. These families run a working farm, a vineyard, a small trade with the visitors who hike up to see the summit, and an entire community. With no grid, no plumbing, and a single thread connecting them to the rest of the world. Most of us would struggle to last a weekend like that. They have built an entire life on it and handed it down for generations. Children growing up who can read the mountain's moods better than they can read a map. Life up here moves with the mountain and the sky. There is a long dry season when the tanks run low and every drop is measured against the weeks still to come, and a short window of rain that the whole year is planned around. There is the harvest, when the crater fills with the work of picking and pressing, families helping families the way they always have. It is hard, and it is narrow, and it is theirs. Nobody up here is waiting to be rescued. And then, every few decades, the mountain reminds them exactly what it is. On the 23rd of November, 2014, Pico do Fogo erupted. It was the largest eruption the volcano had produced in recorded history. This was not a distant plume for tourists to photograph from a safe road. It was a wall of lava, moving straight through the villages where people lived. The families had a warning measured in hours. They spent the night outside their homes as the ground shook beneath them, and then they were evacuated as the fire came down the slope. From the coast far below, you could see the whole top of the mountain glowing orange against the dark. And then the worst part began, the waiting. Because the lava did not race, it crept. Day after day, week after week, it pushed across the floor of the caldera, meter by meter, and swallowed everything standing in its path. The people could only watch from a distance as it moved toward the homes they had just fled, knowing exactly what was coming and unable to stop a single inch of it. By the time it finally stopped, in early 2015, it had destroyed around 3/4 of the buildings in the area. The village of Portela, the beating heart of the community, simply disappeared beneath a stream of hardened rock. The lava took the school. It took the homes. It took the vineyards that had grown there for over a century. It buried the tanks that held their water. It covered the only road. Everything the community had built over generations was gone, sealed under black stone that stayed warm to the touch for months afterward. By every rule that is supposed to govern human behavior, that should have been the end of Chã das Caldeiras. The people were safe. They were evacuated, alive, counted. They could have started again somewhere flat, somewhere green, somewhere that would never try to kill them. For a while, that is exactly where they were. Evacuated down to the coast, living in shelters and borrowed rooms, far from the Black Valley that had just swallowed their homes. They could have stayed there. Safer, flatter, easier. And slowly, quietly, they began to make a different choice. If a story about people who refuse to surrender their ground is the kind of thing you came here for, do me one favor and subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep going. Instead, they went back. Within months, families were climbing that rebuilt road, back up into the crater that had just erased their homes. They cleared the cooled rock by hand. They stacked new walls on the fresh lava. They pushed new vines into ground that had been molten only a year before, and waited the years it takes for a vine to bear fruit again. And here is the part that stops most people cold. Many of them did it against the law. The government, terrified of the next eruption, tried to stop people from rebuilding inside the high-risk zone. People rebuilt anyway, quietly, stubbornly. One house at a time, they came home. To an outsider, that looks like madness. Why would you walk back into the fire? But look at it through their eyes, and a completely different logic appears. This crater is not just the place they happen to live. It is the soil their grandparents planted. It is the vineyard, the cheese, the coffee, the wine that carries their family's name. It is the one place on Earth where their particular way of life is even possible. Leave the volcano, and you do not just lose a house. You lose the thing that made you who you are. That is the real trade sitting at the center of this whole story. The mountain gives them the richest ground on the island, and it can take all of it back, without warning, whenever it chooses. They know this. They have watched it happen with their own eyes. And they have decided, clear-eyed and awake, that the life the volcano makes possible is worth the risk that the volcano will one day end it. And this was not the first time they made that choice. Pico do Fogo has erupted again and again across the centuries, a mountain that has never truly gone quiet for long. Each time, it has taken part of what the people built. Each time, once the rock cooled, they came back and built it again. The eruption of 2014 was only the latest round of a bargain their families have been making for generations. It is not stubbornness. It is a bargain, a brutal, honest bargain that almost none of us will ever be asked to make. Because almost none of us have ever lived somewhere that feeds us and threatens us with the very same hand. So this was never really a story about a volcano. It is a story about what people can build when leaving is not an option. And it is a story about a kind of knowledge that the rest of us quietly handed away. The families of Chã das Caldeiras catch their own water out of the sky. They grow their own food in soil that farmers anywhere else would fight over. They build their homes from the stone under their feet. They live without the grid, without the safety net beneath them, and they do not experience it as deprivation. It is simply how you live in a place that gives you everything and guarantees you nothing. And there is something in that worth borrowing, even for those of us who will never live near a volcano. The people of Chã did not defeat the mountain. They studied it, and they worked with the one thing it handed them freely. Soil so rich that farmers anywhere else would fight over it. They took the exact thing that threatened them and turned it into the thing that feeds them. That is not a trick of geography. It is a way of seeing the world. We tend to look at people like this and feel a little sorry for them. It is worth asking whether we have it exactly backwards, because they have held on to something most of us traded away long ago without even noticing. The ability to feed themselves, water themselves, and rebuild themselves on their own terms in the one spot on Earth they refuse to abandon. They do not need the world to stay calm in order to survive. They have already proven they can lose everything and begin again. The volcano will erupt again. Every person living in that crater knows it. And when it does, once the ground has cooled enough to walk on, they will climb back up the mountain and plant again. Which leaves one last question hanging over all of this. If these people can pull an entire life out of a mountain that keeps trying to bury them, then what on earth do they do about the other thing this island barely has? Water. Because across these islands, there are no rivers at all. And the way Cape Verde pulls fresh drinking water straight out of the air is somehow even stranger than a vineyard growing inside a volcano. Subscribe, and that is exactly where we are going next. The island that harvests its water from fog.